Hi guys, welcome to the session on coffee with Prabh. And today it's a very special coffee for me. I always offer coffee to others, but this time I got a coffee from Mr. Sunil sir, one of my mentor, who I follow, who I admire a lot. And I'm sure those who are watching this podcast, some of them already worked with Sunil. And he's a cybersecurity leader and 3 decades on the front line. And he won almost every security hat you can say, imaginable, like global CISO, fellow at Wipro, CISO of ID Cellular, managing director of HSBC, and latest CTO for both Symantec and Forcecoat. And he steers cybersecurity programs across the business, telecom, and tech in the US, Middle East, and India. And it holds a string of credentials from CISSP to CRISC. And he still find time to mentor new CISOs and speak on the stages from RSA to B-side. Let's welcome Sunil sir, where we're going to deep dive into the real world mindset and turn the boardroom risk into the security reality. Good evening, good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Prabh. Thank you very much.
Before we basically start the session, I want to share one important thing about Sunil sir. I met him first time in one of the conference, and the kind of a welcome I got, the kind of a greeting I got from the person. I was always having this assumption, okay, very senior guy, I don't know, very disciplined person, how he going to speak and all that. But he make you comfortable, like, you are just part of family, and that's the best thing about any leader. And I can see from that perspective how he handle his aura, that kind of, and I'm sure the folks who work under Sunil and all that, I'm sure you guys are very lucky because the kind of a mentor you got, very down to earth, no ego, nothing, and always ready to share the information, which is a big thing, you won't find today in any CISOs. So sir, really, really, from bottom of my heart, thanks for taking out the time for this particular podcast. I'm sure it will give a great insight to the aspiring CISOs who want to implement the risk management program in the organization.
Prabh, you are an inspiration to so many people in this fraternity. So when I met you in that crowd, I was very happy because
Thank you, sir.
I know you for a very long time. I have never met you personally, and I still cherish the photo I have taken with you. I came to you and said, "Can I have a photo with you?"
Sir,
So I
I
still cherish
was,
it.
sir, it was like a great moment, I was shocked, the person like him who basically mentors so many people telling about this, and you made my day that day, to be frank, sir. And sir, like, today we talking about something like, but before we need to jump into topic, I said today programs, we're talking about CISO mindset, about risk, boardroom, and reality. But before that, sir, I want to ask one origin story of Sunil, sir. When you're talking about, you take back to your very first moment you felt the CISO title, and that's land on your shoulder, where were you and what was happening and what did that weight feel like?
It is not a particular moment or a particular day. The moment you get into cybersecurity as
Hmm.
as as a role or as a CISO as a role, the day one itself that pressure comes into picture. Okay. Compared to many other practices we do, cybersecurity has different flavors because let's look at the day of a CISO. You
Hmm.
start coming to the office, you have the previous night's incident reports or the indicators, the people followed up on SOC, that comes into picture. Then there will be a briefing of threat intel, what is happening globally. Then you look at your dashboards where you stand, some audit reports or regulatory findings will be there. There will be a news articles which we may have to be a bit worried or be concerned about. There will be an attrition of some key members because you run a very tight team. The people with a lot of context you build over the years, and suddenly you see one guy leaving, and then you know that vacuum, the impact you are going to have. So on and off, or every hour, your mood. So you are not waiting for an adversarial act only to be worried. Your every day is a worry. And there are a lot of constituents or your stakeholders who will come back and say, I'm not happy with you because they wanted the convenience versus security. So the question is, then you need to handle it in such a manner because otherwise your tone they will perceive as arrogance because
Arrogance,
it's
yeah.
somebody with an authority. So all this thing you have to balance in a totally different manner. So normally when we look at a CISO and say, oh, we have to worry about the pandas and the bears and the Lazarus, no, we have to worry about everything what is happening around us. So, but all the majority of the people in security likes it. take it as a challenge, try to improve continuously because they have taken security as a choice. They
Yes,
know
that's
what
true.
they were getting into and they're
Excellent.
continuing with that fire.
Excellent. And sir, like, before we jump into the topic, the very good point you said about security should be enabler for the company. You should not be arrogant and all that. Can we say like that role of a CISO is like a translator to explain to the business why security is important and to the operation why business is important? Let me give an example. Like if you tell the operation team, let's encrypt everything. But when you go for too much encryption, it will impact the functionality. On the other side, you convey the management, we need an encryption because to comply for data, because it comes with a cost and all that. So can we say a good CISO is the one who can be a good communicator, who good with the concept understanding and all that, who and that come with the concept of you need to be how grounded you are, because arrogancy cannot help you to explain these things. So do you believe that okay, this should be one of the most important soft skill the CISO should have
So
or
Prab,
must have?
the word translator, I think that resonates well. Okay,
Yeah.
you are a platform or a middleware. The role of a CISO is to assess the potential risk and inform the relevant stakeholders the risk of having that or the magnitude of that risk, the likelihood, the potential risk, the compensating controls, all of that thing to them for them to take an informed decision.
True.
CISOs are never the risk owners.
True.
You are identifying, assessing continuously based on your external, internal view, risk appetite you have pulled, the control environment you have deployed. So based on that, you assess the risk and then inform the stakeholders. And on the other side of it, it's like a platform. The other side, you go back to them and say, you translate that risk to the technical control requirement and go back to them and say, enforce it in the right manner. So you are a translator or a mediator, but many a times the CISOs get into a situation where they believe they are the risk owners.
Okay.
They are not the risk owners.
Okay. And with the continuation of that question only, sir, that you said about the risk owner, if any brand new risk pop up, you are part of a business process, and if there is any brand new risk pop up, how do you decide? Because sometimes what happen, there is a pressure is there. I believe that we called as a beginning, tension and resolution and future look ahead. So right now you're in stage of tension where they
Correct.
want everything to be solved in 5-10 minutes. So let's take an example, in fast forward, when brand new risk, any new risk pop up, how do you decide in first 5 minutes whether where it goes to the board or just an email update? Because sometimes it happens, right? Because we believe that okay, whatever the email we send to CISO, we always flag as urgent because they believe CISO will give me solution in 5 minutes. So how do you see this situation?
So board or a senior management,
Yeah,
they set the tone for the organization.
true,
When it comes to cybersecurity, they do the oversight of it. The first 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you inform them because they're like a RACI metrics, they had different roles to play. Are they an
true.
informed party? Are they accountable party? All of that come to picture. Many a times we keep them informed because they may get in as a party, which means there is a news about your organization, maybe a data leakage or some statement gone out or something of that sort, which is in the media. Now, this news cascades to multiple people. There is a possibility your CEO is in a meeting or a traveling, some journalist goes to him and asks a question about it. And he says, I have no clue. That is
True.
damaging.
Uh,
So you as a CISO may have to take a call and say, I have to inform us as a party of
okay.
our narrative, not the narrative defined by the external world.
Uh,
So that narrative will be very clearly saying there is a source which is saying this. This is our understanding. This is what we are doing right now.
just for
So that
notification.
is where they come into picture.
Hmm.
Okay. Always when we communicate to them, we don't say there is something happening, we have no clue. We will not go that way. We will say there is something happening. We are there to fix it, or we are working on it, and there is probably a bridge starting, or which you can log in if you wanted further details and updates, or we send a periodic mail or to update you up. That is what
Hmm.
the first 5-10 minutes or an 1 hour's job. Because you cannot get, if you look at who is the key stakeholders, there may be at least 10 of them. You have the CEO, CFO, CRO, CHO. There is a lot. Okay. You cannot waste your time going and talking to everybody.
But can you encounter any situation you've been through that you
Oh,
handle
many,
such kind of a crisis? If you
many.
can share one, it can be a good use case for the aspiring CISOs.
So take an example. So more than a use case, let me take a situation this way.
Hmm.
You are, say, at least two levels up. So being a CISO, you may be reporting to a CIO or a CRO or a legal counsel, and they may be reporting to CEO.
Hmm.
Okay. You have a big malware propagation happening. You may have to shut down few offices, which will impact the customers.
Even it's happening today, ransomware and all that. Yeah.
Correct, because you suddenly know one of your office in Hyderabad is getting impacted, and you are going to shut down. You at that point of time, there are 4,500 people working on that. There is a financial loss to that. There is a multiple customer impact to that, but you have to take a call on that.
True.
Okay. So when you are deciding to cut off, you call the CIO, sorry, CEO at 1 o'clock at night in his time zone. He gets up, you
Definitely,
say,
he will not going to love it.
no, the problem, he will be totally confused on how to assess the situation. Okay, because he don't know how many people are there, what is this impact. You are talking all technical, you are panicked, all of that. So as a best practices, what we have done in my career is we identified around 15 different scenarios. And in each of the scenarios, take an example, ransomware as a scenario. We said ransomware, these are the stakeholders to be informed, to be made party, all of that thing. And we have said these are the 5 questions you can ask at that point of time.
Hmm.
Or we will have answer of that 5. Okay, who is impacted? Where did it come from? What is the next action you are doing? So when we call them or send a communication, we will have answer to that 5 things. And based on various interactions and the mock drills we have done, we have agreed to a point saying that within this 5 or 3 or 5 questions, they get a fair understanding to take a decision.
Okay.
If we don't have it, because now cyber incidents is a routine. Okay, you have a large dump of your GitHub or a database or a SharePoint is now online where everybody sees it. CEO will be confused completely, but you will say this is exactly happening. Based on this, you have to say this. You take the call.
Hmm. Okay.
That's the only way to survive because we know in the physical world also, a lot of incidents went completely out of hand because how the management responded to a query on that incident.
Understood. And it also matter the leadership skill, how the CISO is basically presenting the facts. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct. The when you are on a tight attack scenario, you are on a
Hmm.
war footing. The other party is completely pulled in at an odd hour where he presence of mind itself takes a long time
True.
to get
True.
into your mindset, and you don't have enough information to provide.
Hmm.
Okay, but you need to keep them informed. So that is why and most of these techies, if you look at, are bad in communicating under stress. So that's
Hmm.
why this type of playbooks help us. Very clearly, we say these are the 5 questions. This is the action expected from you. So they are also very clear.
Understood. And that's the reason I asked, because sometimes what happen, they're expecting from a CISO to give us the answer in 5 minutes and 10 minutes. That's the reason I ask. And it's a very great point you said about building a framework and all that, to avoid a distraction. Very good point I have. And so I'm making a lot of notes here. So I got some insight which I'm going to use in consulting. And that was something is new for me, to be frank, sir. And that's the advantage of taking a podcast, because it's like a learning session I get from the people like you who basically spend time on this area. And do you recall any tough time you had to say no to the speed because risk was too high? Because how do you frame the decision to business leaders still trusted you?
So there are many a times. It is not
Hmm.
easy. Everybody's ego get impacted the moment CISO says you cannot do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Because they would have committed to their customers, to their stakeholders, and the internal team would have never communicated to him the magnitude they
True.
may get it. The last minute they get the call saying security team said no. Okay.
Hmm.
Then things get out of hand. Okay. Two things So production move or a production move on for the customer.
Okay.
So both can happen. If it is internal, we can actually go back to them and say, this is the risk, who's going to sign off?
Hmm.
Because CISO is not the owner of the risk. He's not going to accept and sign off by himself.
Hmm.
He wants the stakeholder, because if stakeholder hierarchy is not enough for to accept that risk, we have to go to the higher levels. We'll go back to him and say, go back to the CEO or the CRO, whoever is that stakeholder, get a letter from him saying, or a concurrence from him saying, we are opening this risk, which can have reputational, multiple regulatory, all of that risk,
Hmm.
and 24 hours to fix it. Many a times these people are hesitant to take that risk and accountability directly with them. While we communicate with them, back end we are working on putting compensating controls to reduce the damage. Even if we
Any
have to
use
do
case? Any use
that.
case we can take? Any real use case you have seen?
Classic thing we come across is the website going production,
Okay.
an application going production exposed to internet.
Hmm.
Okay, while we are negotiating with the stakeholders for their production release delay and all of that thing, back end we are all working to say that can I put additional WAF rules? Can I do this thing? Can I increase the monitoring continuity? All of that thing to in case worst case scenarios. But when it comes to customer, the problem is our internal stakeholder also has to communicate to the customer saying I cannot do it today because my internal security. So there is a problem there. There you participate with them to
Hmm.
communicate to the customer together, saying this is how the risk look like. Are you okay with that? Can we do something? So many a times the communication is what creates the problem.
Communication and negotiation skills, I believe.
We don't communicate in the right manner.
Hmm.
We go blunt.
Hmm. This has
Okay,
to be done.
so correct. And we don't want to face the customer. This internal CISO will say, why should I face the customer? But our account manager is stuck
I
because
have
he
to
don't
maintain
have
the
enough
customer.
to talk to them. So
True.
normally when CISO comes into picture, their CISO will also come into picture
Hmm.
because they cannot take a call themselves because their CISO has to come.
True.
Then that becomes a very matured call where right decisions are taken. That's where your question earlier saying, how's the CISO's day? This may be happening 3 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
Okay. And my understanding, CISO is a guy with zero ego. An ideal CISO should have zero ego.
Exactly. That's why called a
Okay,
security should be enabler for the business, not to be a disabler for the business, and should not block the business.
correct. But you have
And
to
it start with
balance.
the, yeah, we need to
You
balance
cannot be
that.
an S man also to everything. You
Uh,
have to balance it very, very rightly.
Sometimes hardest no can basically help to build the trust.
Because ego hurts because you are never aware that this product was getting developed.
Hmm.
They called you only on the last, you are in a change management call, and suddenly you hear that this is going production tonight.
Understood.
So naturally you get the ego saying that how can that be? What am I here for? All those things. But world is an agile world. We have to move ahead with the right way.
And that is why, sir, with this continuation, it has happened with one of my customer. We had a website and they were into e-commerce. And when we prioritize all the controls and everything, it was more about availability. So it was on a DMZ. The server was on facing internet site. It working well. We have a response time of 4 seconds. 4 to 5 seconds was a response time. One day, what happened? There was a DDoS attack happened. The server was down. Now the call is, if you put extra WAF and all that, it will impact the performance. Temporary, it can give a solution, but it will impact the performance. So we took this call instead of having a call on WAF, we can have a call on load balancers because our business is running on the website. So convey the management in their way, presenting the ROI, availability metrics, and that something come with the communication skills and the mapping of business terms. Because if you don't have that metrics and all that, you can't able to explain that. And that's why I'm agree on that part is you cannot say yes to everything. You cannot say no to everything. You need to balance. And if it's basically balanced, I think that can be a win-win situation. And it should be come from both sides. And that was
Prab,
a good
also,
good insight you said here.
Also, you need to identify a few magicians inside. So
Example?
in every team, there will be few amazing talents. Okay. You call up network guy, one nerd there and ask him, how do I do it? So he'll say, like
Uh,
you mentioned, let's do it on the road balancer,
uh,
which is not in your playbook.
exactly.
Okay.
True.
But because even if there is a delay, it's a compensating control for that period
True.
of time.
True. True.
Okay. So that's why a collaborative environment is required. Because there was a
Hmm.
time the security guys were separate. They had the big, so if you typically go to a security room, it's a big access control room where we don't allow anybody to come in.
True.
We go to a coffee, the cafeteria, we never sit with them because we have a lot of confidential information.
Yeah.
Bullshit. So all this has to change. We have
We
to
have to make
collaborate.
it separate. We have to make it separate relation. Like, example, I know there will be some limitations, but we have to balance
But
it.
that is required. I think job rotations, have the team vacation,
Notifications. Yeah.
uh,
Hmm.
all of that thing is required because you are only one part of the puzzle. Unless until
Hmm.
everybody works together, you cannot make it happen.
True. I agree on that part. And that's why, with the continuation of that, I had a next question is, many team rely on the color heat map, red, amber, green, and all that. So what is a single metrics help you to turn those boxes into real action? And the reason of asking this question is basically, from a viewer's perspective, we are looking for concrete fixes. So we have a lot of things around red, amber, green, and all that, RAB and all that. So, you know, how can you basically what is single metrics, or according to you, can we have one single metrics which help, you to turn those boxes into real actions?
It may not be a single box. Let me put
Hmm.
that we need to prioritize based on the
Hmm.
context. Okay, it
Example?
is all based on the organization's context you have and the support you have. So let me take a vulnerability assessment as an example.
Okay, sir.
When you do a vulnerability assessment, so assuming that you do every biweekly and authenticated scan,
Hmm.
the number of vulnerability which is going to pump into your database is huge. Okay. And if it is a large organization, say 100,000 servers or 300,000 users, it's a huge vulnerability database you are talking about, your internal one, misconfiguration on the other side. Now, how do you prioritize and say, are you going to do an 80-20 rule and say, I'm going to do this way so that 80% of my problems will be solved, or is it based on something else? So one
Hmm.
of the models or the metrics we used to do was, we look at and saying that we put a 10 weightage scale and look at saying, what is this application? Is it internet exposed? Does it have a PI or a PHI data? Does it run a core application? Is it regulatory done? Is it an exploitable vulnerability?
Hmm.
Yeah, so we create that weightage and apply on it, and then immediately we get a score of say 10% of it is above score 8 or score 9. Then we say our priority is to ensure that anything above score 9 has to be fixed within 24 hours.
Understood.
Okay, that is immediately, is that foolproof? It is not. But at least you
Hmm.
have a plan how to go ahead. Otherwise, many a times happens is you have a huge vulnerability database, you look at everywhere and has no clue where to start.
Understood.
You don't even know who owns it. But here you are saying that this is a top one, management tone or management direction is there. If vulnerability exceeds 7.5 or 7 in the weightage metrics, it is a patch, no
Okay.
negotiation.
And there will be role of CVSs also come into the picture when you're prioritizing the
All
vulnerability.
in the
Yeah.
weightage,
Yeah.
we surely look at
Base
saying
score,
that
environment score, and all that.
now the SharePoint currently running, if it is 9.5, it's a non-negotiable because
Hmm.
automatically your weightage goes high because you have a exploitability of 9.5.
Understood. And that's
So
why, based on the context only, we have to prepare.
in all of that, so take an example, you do a security awareness. Okay. You have a team who process financial claims. Now you know very well this team are most of them will be junior staff, come from a non-technical background completely, and they believe that they have nothing to do with security because they are the back end guys. Okay. But in reality, their email address or the contact details are the most exposed because every vendor has it, whom to contact.
True.
Okay, you publish it in all the RFPs, everywhere it is there. And BEC attacks is very huge because the money you can get is huge.
Okay.
And they are always a target. So then, if you suddenly find out your security awareness is lagging for a backend team sitting in a tier 3 city, then you suddenly look at it and saying, what are they actually doing? That's the context I'm talking. They are the payment guys. Can you ignore them? They automatically they are the priority. I have to
Exactly.
make sure that context, I have to make sure they are, even if CISO has to fly down to their location and do a class, you should do it.
True.
That's the context I'm talking about. It is not a magic bullet of a single dashboard comes out with a red, but based on this, and then you can stitch together and say the cause and effect. If this fails, what happens here? You have an admin guy who is on a notice period and he's in a I don't care attitude with all the privileges still given. It's a red flag. Suddenly, the moment he resigns and he still retains his privilege, from orange he goes to red.
True.
With the artificial intelligence coming, I think these are all much easier games now.
Exactly. But it required some kind of attention from the team also. We cannot completely rely on the AI and all that. But yes, it required a lot of fine tuning and everything from the business perspective too.
I think threat modeling is something which we have not given enough importance.
Exactly.
The traditional threat modeling we do at an architecture level and we stop it.
True.
So I think we need to have an exercise of what if in all the scenarios, saying that, okay, what if we have an admin with the admin privileges currently on notice period and I don't care attitude? What if? So then I think we need to do extend that scope.
Agree. And that is missing. Now we should have a security by design or threat by design or privacy by design kind of frameworks so that instead of saying sorry in a later stage, we can rectify the issue as early as possible.
So unfortunately, many security is built with compliance in mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So things are, everybody is on firefight mode.
True.
Nobody has time for anything.
Uh, Agree.
So I used to, in another recording recently, I was saying, ideally, the company should go back and say, I am giving you 10 or 15% of the budget separately. Go and fix your basics. Reduce your
It's good.
noises.
Very, very,
Get a
it's
clean.
very few companies does, to be frank. It's
Yeah,
good.
because
It shows
CISO will never
confidential.
ask. Then they will ask, what were you doing all this time? So somebody has to volunteer and say, you take this 15% budget and then make the house clean.
And that's how, we see the perspective of the culture of the company too, a security culture.
It is. So when an ISO audit happens or a customer audit happens, we may do the cleanup on the limited area of scope.
Day
But
before the
if,
audit and after the audit.
yeah, but if you bring a black belt guy or somebody or CISO suddenly decides saying, this is my Sevanavaram for next 1 week, I'm going to do cleanup. Just bring it down. I have a simple example. In one organization, I put three rookies to just look at saying that how many of our firewall traffic is getting blocked outwards.
Hmm.
And so there are three scenarios. One is you are compromised. One is there was an old rule. We stopped at the firewall, but the server is still sending data or traffic.
Hmm.
In 3 months' time, these three people bought me 6 billion events.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
what we were doing is every day they will come with 10 top ones. We go back and find out which machine is sending it. Is there a vulnerability? Can we fix it? Or is a misconfiguration? Can we fix it? And over this 3 months' time, we reduce this 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. And at some point of time, we understood we have a clean network. There is not much of a noise here.
Wow.
Simple things to do.
Exactly. Keep it simple. There's not too much configurations and all that. And really like that.
Yeah, but there is no jazziness in it. I cannot go to a award function and say, I clean my network. Okay.
That's
But
actually that is happening nowadays. Best CISO awards.
yeah,
Everyone
best
will.
CISO reports are all on what product you have implemented.
No, what
And
product
one
purchase?
guy, product purchase is better driven. And one guy was joking to me and saying, every POC I do, because in my resume I have skills of that now.
Hmm, that's a reality. And that's why the the I had another question with that is, if you, so today is July, and if you're going to take a new job as a CISO, like you already a CISO, but now you're taking a new position as a CISO from 1st August 2025, which three actions would you prove truly to own the cyber risk?
So first thing is
It's
to
all
make sure
about urgency and all. Yeah,
First thing is to make sure that I understand my environment or the estate which I
great,
own,
great,
the visibility part of it, and establish an accountability to that. Every
great,
asset you have.
great.
Is my configurations and the vulnerabilities is
Hmm.
fixed.
Okay, good,
Okay. And then is the RACI metrics established for everything?
excellent.
Because
Why?
security is not the wizard. So assumption is that anything goes wrong, I have a CISO to blame.
Scrap code.
Scapegoat to blame. And CISO also unfortunately think in the other side saying, so in many organization, anything which nobody wants to own and completely gray goes to CISO. And poor CISO will believe that anything my size increase in my team size or responsibility makes me stronger or non-disposable, indispensable.
Uh,
Okay. But in reality, he's actually taking a big exposure where is bound to fail without any resistance. So, but if you go back and say, I am going to have so there are companies where CISOs has established their asymmetrics very well, where then and everybody knows that I am responsible, documented, I have no choice to fix it, but to fix it. So I think these are the three things I will make sure. The visibility part, the misconfiguration vulnerability, and the accountability well established. And my belief, Prabh, is that if I have an environment which is without misconfiguration, without vulnerabilities, and owned and assessed, I am reducing my attack surface at least by around 30-40%. I don't need
hmm.
huge army because there are two schools of thoughts. One school of thought saying that I am a CISO for the namesake. I have no control. So I will try to put the maximum money in technology and people at the perimeter to defend an attack.
True.
And I don't have a control internally. Let them do whatever they want. Or the second school of thought says that I have a full control. I'm going to run a zero trust inside. I give the least privileges. I avoid the vulnerabilities and the misconfiguration. And I don't need a large army to defend because I am resilient by myself.
Okay.
Survivability or sustainability is only for the latter one.
And I think if you're able to address the configuration issue, I think your 60% things get over. And that is where the people used to miss that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct. Because many a times the security team has not even published a configuration document to them to saying how they should configure,
I agree.
or they never reviewed it.
That is a common thing.
There's a big drama also happening inside. I'm not blaming it's internal politics, the tone of the management, budget constraint, a lot of issues. People are fundamentally nice. They wanted to make things work out. But the problem now is we have artificial intelligence, the storm coming in. That is not like the cloud or social media or anything which came. This is much bigger problem. If you don't straighten up now, we'll have a very tough time.
But sir, can we, are you agree on this point also? Somehow also depending upon the reporting structure. I will explain you why. Now, there is a CISO, report to CIO. He has some concerns regarding infrastructure operations and all that, but he cannot able to report it immediately because reporting manager is a CIO. And when he presenting these facts to the CEO and all that, he has to think twice. And sometimes because of communication gap and all that, CIO understood something else. He explained something else to CEO and CEO implement something else. So can you agree on this statement? If we change the reporting structure, at least 40 to 50% of the issue which is happening from operation gets sorted, where because CISO will get a more empowerment and he can able to speak better and he can able to share his viewpoint better to the business team.
Prab, I'm not a supporter of CISO reporting to CIO.
But this
Having
is
said,
happening, no? But it is happening.
but
60%, 70%
having
happening.
having said that, it also depends on the type of business you are engaged,
Agree, agree.
size of the organizations, and so many things. I'll take few
Hmm.
examples. Take a telco industry.
Hmm.
Typically, a CISO report to a CIO.
Agree.
It's a powerful guy called CTO sitting on the other side who manages the entire telecom network.
True.
CIO is more busy or engaged on the billings and the value adds and all of that thing. If CISO is reporting to CIO there, the CTO is not going to appreciate you on any of your recommendations. You have no control.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay.
Good insight.
And when you report to CIO, you are seeing the world only through the CIO's mindset or
Mindset.
lens. Okay.
Strategic
And there
mindset.
are businesses, say large IT services company. There may be a lot of business functions who they themselves are techies because they are running a large technology programs for their customers. They don't come to CIO, internal CIO for every procurement they are doing. They are doing for the customers on behalf of the customer, maybe hosted with our name in their different environments, all of that. CIO will say, I don't have a say there because they are doing for the business. But accountability is with the company, reputational damage, regulatory damage is everything, contractual liabilities are all with the company.
True.
CISO cannot avoid it. But on the other hand, you look at a startup or maybe an agriculture. I'm taking agriculture because I don't understand that industry much. But recently, when I done a search, I understood that is an industry with least cyber, the least target in a cyber attack. Okay. There may be the technology will be limited where CIO controls everything. So everything what CISO sees through this lens will be the same as the actual landscape. So that's why I said it all depends on the nature of the business and the size of the organization and the
And
maturity of the sales.
and that's why you said that it depending upon the business. If you take example of fintech, the CISO report to CRO.
Correct. Even I reported to General Counsel for a very long time,
Hmm.
Chief Operating Officer.
And how do you
Okay.
how do you see the mindset?
The General Counsel was really good.
Hmm.
Okay, because they understood risk. So that's the first time I understood. CISO need the legal support of general counsel with them because you
True.
may be called pulled in for a deposition in a court, or you may have some contracts getting signed where you have a say. So you can influence in many different manners. CEO also may have some problems with the operation side because you highlight an issue with an operations CEO has an interest on there, but it all depends on the nature of the business. CRO is a good one. CEO, if he is ready to spend time or empower you very well, CEO is the right choice. But the
Hmm.
question is a businessman. He has to run the business.
And I think CRO is the one who accountable for all type of risk which is happening in the company to represent to the board, whether it's
Correct. So
operational, IT, and business and all that.
correct. I have worked in organization where CRO, CIO, CISO are all peers.
Hmm.
Okay. There the technology and information risk was handed over to CISO.
Understood.
And CRO covered all the other risk, the market risk, the immigration risk, and all of that thing.
Operations and that's why there is a next question with follow up with that only. Like if you take example of IT, legal, finance, all speak the different language. You know that. So what's your playbook for earning trust from each group or camp?
Each of that group, stakeholder groups, need the support of CISO.
Yeah,
And
vice
CISO
versa,
also need
vice
support.
versa, vice versa. Yeah.
Okay. But unfortunately, there are few forums where they sit together and say, I actually need your support. They don't say.
Hmm.
Okay. Like I mentioned earlier, when I was reporting to General Counsel, suddenly I understood there are a lot of lawyers or legal team writing or working on contractual clauses, discussing with a cloud, a SaaS purchase or a cloud implementations or whatever it is, or taking the access to the data of the customer, where they have no clue whether what to write or how to make sure that we are safeguarded. Okay, they need security guys input. Security guy, on the other hand, needs a lot of cover from them. So each of these groups, because we all have a common objective, everybody in their respective spaces has a risk associated with cyber because we are in a digitally connected world.
Hmm.
So that is ideally an organization should have a cyber strategic function or a group which should comprise of CEO, CIO, CRO, CFO, CTO, all of the CHRO, all of that guys, where they all sit together. And that should be the forum where without frills or
Okay.
without censoring, you open up and say, this is exactly what is happening for us. And
Understood.
then, because I remember a situation where then CEO asked, did you do anything? I said, I have no budget. So then you look at the CFO and say, did you see that? Give it. Okay. Or CHRO says, I never knew these people were trouble. I can fix it. So only when you get such a forum, at least convene every 3 months' time, to open up and say, some getting a shoulder to cry, maybe. But you need that group.
Agree. And that's the reason I ask, that question is integration part and all that, how do you see that communications and all that? Because this is can be the turning point also. A lot of people basically struggle on that area, how to explain. They assume that, okay, they understood very well, but in
So
reality, it is not.
let's
Yeah.
look at the title CISO. Okay. Many organizations still keep it as head of security. Okay. A CXO, because some organization will say CXO is an executive management team because you have a C. But why I'm not a big fan of saying we need a board seat at this point of time. I don't think we have not reached there. But at
Hmm.
least every security head should need a C title because then only you can go with the spears and put your support requirement clearly and get it.
Agree. I agree on that part, and that's a reason with this, with the continuations and all. That's why I asked this question, sir. What is the communication metric should be there by which we can able to convey one thing to all, and that's a very good thing. Listening skills and the presentation and the point. If your context is clear, you can able to provide the uniformity.
Yeah.
And so this is a very important question before we wind up. For what is the persistent myth about cyber budget still shows up in boardroom, and how do you dispel it?
So the myth is that security got so much of money. Okay. And still they are not happy. Okay. The another myth is that they are empowered,
Which is not true.
which is not at all true. Which is not at all true.
And he
If
get
board
a he also got a BMW.
eh, the challenge is that if the board asks a question, so one board member or a senior management guy calls you and says, Sunil, if you have a problem, this is the number you can ask them to call. So you are running a project or an initiative. There are 10 guys who doesn't want that to happen, and you are stuck or a checkmated. And then the CEO or a CEO or some board members tell you that if you are in cornered, ask them to call me. I'll clear the path to you. The security posture of that company will change overnight.
True.
Okay. Also, the board has to go back and say how much of overlapping technologies you have, how much of projects you are half filled or half deployed, how much of license we are giving for no reasons. Because there is a lot of what you call mismanagement. Because any organization, if you look at, or most of the organization you look at, there are at least two or three overlapping technologies running.
True.
Okay, we are buying tools after tool. Is it fully deployed?
No.
So those also need to come back to these people. While we are saying that 10% or 12% of the IT budget is not enough for us, we also need to look at saying how much of optimization we have done.
Hmm. And that's why I
So
started with the one you said to keep it simple. Instead
correct.
of having a multiple technology stack, you can understand what is required. Yeah.
A lot can be done, but we many are not doing. Classic
Mm.
example, we buy WAF. How many WAF is actually been deployed?
Lots of
Okay,
POC and all that.
correct. While the large chunk of attacks are happening on web applications.
Mm.
Okay, penetration testing we do very rigorously. How much has been fixed? Did we have an improvement? If you take the last 3 years of penetration testing, did we see anything changing over the time? Hardly any. Even the OS, the top 10 is not changing.
I agree.
So those that guardrails has to be strong to the security team also.
And the reason why I asked this question, sir, because there's a lot of myth around this section which talk about budget and all that. That's the reason I asked. And I'm sorry, sir, like, it making more interesting, but I could not resist to stop this question. But I want to ask this question from you is, uh, you know, when you walk into any board meetings, we say that okay, decision skills and everything is important. But when you walk into the board meeting, what does good cyber reporting look like? One number, three numbers, or narrative. Can you give an example on that?
So typically in a board meeting, you get around 45 minutes.
Hmm.
Okay. In that
Average.
45 minutes, what we are going to say is that how does our security posture look like?
Okay.
Okay. In the sense, do we have, so ideally, if you can, if CIO is not doing it, if you can give a landscape to them saying that, okay, we have international gateways in 10 locations. We currently have our estate size of this. Very brief. Okay. In this one, 99% is accounted for, is governed and managed. Okay. We have programs. So the latest threats we are seeing are in this 3 or 4 areas where we have a program running on it.
Okay.
Forward looking, and these are the few instances we had which we learned and fixed and to measures to avoid in future. And these are the future initiatives we are taking to handle, say, artificial intelligence coming into picture, or a new regulation coming into picture, or we are opening up a new office in a new geography, or all of that. That 2, 3 pages is good. Because many a times
Hmm.
in board meeting, what happens is these people are very curious about cybersecurity because they would have direct or indirect exposure to some cyber incidents or a newspaper article they read in the morning about cybersecurity. Typically a credit card fraud or some BEC compromise or something of that sort. In between, the conversation goes completely out of hand. Somebody will say, "Oh, my niece had a problem in cyber." Then the next guy goes out, and then the your 45 minutes is exhausted. So you need to have. So if you go back and say, "I have 45 minutes, let me go with the 30 slides which I'm going to do there," you will never cross the first 10.
Yes, that's true.
Go with minimum, be specific, and then let the ride happens.
Hmm.
And then clearly ask what the help required. And give a confidence. End of the day, they need a confidence saying, we know what we are doing.
Understood. And that's why it's very important your agenda and your perspective should be clear. What you want to convey instead of just starting with anything, narrative stories and all that. Because
Yeah,
when we
we
purchase, we bought a
should
time. Yeah.
exhibit a confidence to them. You cannot say that, okay, I am your driver, but I hardly know how to do that. Then you're
Agree.
lost. So that first 10 minutes, you have to make sure that they feel the confidence in you.
And sir, any example you can share what you have encountered in the board meetings? One
See,
example.
multiple board meetings I have been to. Okay. Many a times is what they wanted this confidence from your side.
Okay.
Very rarely people will get into specifics unless until there is a media report or some alarming story running around where they need a clarity.
Mhm.
Most likely the audit committee guys would have already cleared it by the time you reach there.
Okay.
Okay. So because they play a big role in the entire thing. Okay. Um, the problem because audit group is actually a good one if they are technically aware about what is happening. But in some organization there is a L2 the control to guys comes into picture. They
Hmm.
are just keep on challenging you for no reasons and creating confusion. Because the problem is that you have lot to handle yourself. The internal politics, the soft side, the attacks, the vendor issues. Then this guys comes to poke in, and their role and survivability is purely on the confusion they create.
Hmm.
Okay, it is like we say bureaucrats has a problem with all this different parties, the medias, and the everybody poking to say why you did that. That challenges are there, but audit head and all of that thing plays a very strong roles with you to make sure because they get more time with the board meetings, board members, and there will be an independent director assigned for this activity also or tasked to
Okay.
give the oversight. So
Okay.
there are scenarios where they may ask specifically, what are you trying to do on that? We heard that, say, machine learning is becoming a major, or when we had this Snowden effect coming into picture, how
Hmm.
do you expect a similar situation in an industry like ours? Then you need to say that was, you need to be prepared slightly on that. Or you'll say that I will prepare a white paper and send it across to you on our view. Because you cannot misguide them.
Every
And I
statement
don't think
matters.
correct. If anything going beyond your core domain, it's better to take a time, do your research and go back.
Yeah, instead of saying something randomly, we cannot say like that.
Correct. It is not a failure.
Hmm.
Because the question can become so now say the founder of AI has a worry of fear on artificial intelligence. So what's your view? I may have to sit and think. Is that 10 minutes I'm not going to give it. But on all your core areas, you do your homework very well and go. Because
And
those
that's why,
views are
that's a very important thing. That's why I want to make a note of that because I personally believe that okay, that come from experience. You cannot learn that thing anywhere about how to speak to the board meetings and all that come with experience. That's the reason. And this question has been asked by multiple people. Next time, if someone is basically come for the podcast and all that, please ask this question. And it come with experience. You cannot learn from
but there
somewhere.
is
Yeah.
another side of it. And another side of it. You go to a board, you put two, three lines extra saying that this is an initiative we are doing where
Huh.
you don't have a full support internally.
True.
Okay. You go there and present it out. And then it is on the minute saying that board has heard that you're doing this.
Hurt.
So your internal resistance to a great extent is over.
Exactly.
Okay, I have seen with the great leaders also. When you go to a meeting and if they give a platform, many times they don't give a platform to open up
Hmm. But
easily.
I think CISOs,
But
the things are getting changed now. CISOs are getting that values in the board meetings and all that. They're involved in the decision making process and all that.
but think about another side. You go to a board meeting and you say, these are my 10 problems I need. I have no clue what to do. Then it becomes a total different scenario because the board was aware there was a problem and they didn't act. Okay, that is where the seasoned CISO also comes into picture. You can say there is a problem, which is a risk for us, and I'm working to make
Hmm.
it work. So there is no straight answer. It's a balanced act, but it also depends on the maturity of that board, and also whether the board is calling you for a compliance activity or with a good intent.
That's but that was a great insight, sir. And the reason
Because they
of
should be very clear that you are not going to hear a fairy tale and all good things from CISO. He may come here and then literally cry in front of all of us. They should be prepared for it.
so you should be prepared for the worst case. You should not
When
go with
you
a
call a
thing.
CISO, you never know what it's going to come and say.
Exactly. That's why, sir, even in security, we say you should be prepared for dynamic situations. Not necessary every day you will get the same thing. So there's a two things are there: panic or suffering. Sorry, suffering and pain. Pain. So,
It is. See, the burnout, probably if you look at it, we talk about burnouts.
hmm,
People wanted to run out of it. That's not a myth. It is a reality.
I have
Okay.
seen, yeah.
Most of the time, it is not because the bears and pandas and Lazarus is behind us. It is because the guy, the sysadmin sitting in the corner, not allowing you to do a change.
But I think these things got to change now. People getting a lot of offsite by product companies. They're arranging a lot of conferences and all that.
It is. See,
Uh,
a lot has changed to the good. Okay.
yeah.
But there are people still suffering, and they're still struggling to maneuver.
Hmm.
Because from the background they came from all of that thing, they are also manual. But a seasoned guy who spent couple years there, the ego goes off. He don't care. Because he believes strongly that this is my passion. I work for a common good. So then it works.
That's great. That is just really amazing, sir. Thanks for sharing a great insight on this risk cyber myth. And I'm sure, I got a lot of points from this podcast, which I'm going to use to practice in my consulting. And, I'm really appreciating the things and, taking on the time for this particular session, sir. Matlab,
Thank you very much, and thank
thanks
you
for
for
sharing
having me.
those wisdom today and your story, especially you talk about the board meetings and how to communicate. It gave us a real look, at the CISO life and what it take to manage risk at the board level. It's a big thing, sir. And definitely coming from your side, who spent a decade in security, it's a big thing.
Thank you very much, Prabh. Have a great
A-
day.
And sir,
Speaking to you.
I learned three important things from this podcast. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm wrong or not. One is that you need to earn trust first.
Yes.
Tool comes second. Second is one clear matrix, beat the page of heat map and all that. You should follow. Keep it simple. Whether it's a solution and that. You need to be calm. You need to be very clear with the vision. You need to be very clear with the purpose when you enter the board meetings. Like this is what I learned from this podcast today.
Prab, on the trust, you also need to earn this trust with your team members also.
Hmm.
Because most of the time, the decisions, because there are some organization, everything happens only through a long mail chain.
True.
Okay. And there are organizations, decisions happen over a call.
True.
Okay. It's all trust. Okay. If I call somebody of my team member at late night 1 o'clock and say, change the role in the firewall to this, which may have disruption. Okay, he authenticate that it is my voice and it's me on the other side. He should take the call and not worry that tomorrow what will happen to me if something goes wrong. Will he send a mail and say, can you just reply to this mail saying that I am authorized to do it?
Hmm.
Because you are when you are in a war front or a war footing, your decisions has to be very timely, and
Agree.
you need confidence with them saying that they will act accordingly. Okay. And when they give an insight or an input, you have a trust that what they give is right or
True.
correct information. Okay. If I get some data in front of me and I act based on that, and tomorrow there is nobody says that, okay, he says I wasn't sure, I just gave a data, then you are lost. That's why your team becomes extremely important for you.
Okay.
Because between them, just a look, they should understand how we operate in that mode. That's
Agree.
why when attrition happens, it's so painful because you are missing one of that group member. But and I was fortunate to have to work with amazing set of people and leaders.
And that's come with the the experience and karma also, I believe, because how do you serve back and you get back? Sometimes you have to
Yeah.
believe that also. Yeah.
No, I do, and I am grateful for that because many a times what happens is a CISO may come from a software background, rarely, or a network background, or from an MBA college, from can be from different places, but you are working on domains which are very, very hybrid and a lot of new technologies, a lot of new threats, and all of that thing. And you are extremely dependent on your team members to provide you the input to take an action
True.
because you may not be a master in that subject at all. Okay, that's where I said the ego should not be there. You have to go back and sit with them and say, how does it actually work? Okay, then he says, oh, he should not feel, oh, this idiot doesn't know. But that's where the trust has to be there, and even at that level starting.
Hmm.
Then
And
you go to management and say, I have to cut off one side, and they should trust you saying that, okay, you have done your due diligence, and that's the best call we can have at that point.
hmm,
So that's why surviving is not easy because decisions you take at every moment in different mindset and different hostility around you should be consistent also. And that is where that ego part comes again saying, if you have gone wrong, you should be the first one to go back and say, I was wrong.
hmm.
because otherwise, long run, you will lose out.
Suffer.
Yeah.
And a good thing is that you need to balance everything. That's how it
Yeah.
works. That's how it works.
And this is a career where social network is not there. You don't have friends. Nobody want to smile with you or talk to you, or a lot of challenges. Okay.
That's true.
But you are working on a common good cause.
Understood. That's really really great insight, sir. And is it okay? Can I share your LinkedIn profile and description box so the people
Please
who
do
are
so.
watching this podcast they can connect with you on LinkedIn, and because you do a lot of posts also on LinkedIn, and your posts are like a gold mine for
Wow.
anyone who aiming for a C-suite security role. So I believe that can also give a great insight.
Coming that from you is really a.
No, no, sir. No, sir.
Yeah.
I really mean it, sir. So I
Thank
really
you very
mean
much.
it. And that's why. And, I'm still not able to absorb that, okay, you have taken the time for this podcast. I thought, let me try my guess. And in hour, you have replied, that's a big thing. So that shows the person humbleness and all that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks for my side, sir.
Bye.
So
Bye.
this is all from our side team. Do let us know how do you find this podcast in a comment section, and if you really find useful and all that, do share your suggestions, which help me to improve our content. And we can also disturb again Sunil sir for another topic. I'm sure he will not mind, and
Anytime.
because he's just like a family member, so I will push him.
I'm,
Okay, we'll have one more podcast, and Sunil sir will definitely
no,
say no to that.
artificial
And
intelligence
looking,
is something I'm very closely following your directions also on whatever you're writing and saying.
thank you, sir. So we will have a next podcast on CISO perspective on AI very soon. And this is all from our side. And if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss the future videos on a similar topic. This is all from my side. Thank you so much. Good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.